You heard it, didn't you? That low, humming vibration that didn't belong to any machine. It didn't echo like a neighbor's music or a car engine below. It moved through the walls, into the floor, under your skin. And when it passed through you, chosen one, something ancient stirred, not in fear, but in recognition. You've tried to explain it away, told yourself it was plumbing, told yourself you were tired, overthinking, imagining things. But deep in your spirit, you knew. That sound wasn't mechanical, it was spiritual, and it was aimed directly at you. The apartment didn't shift, but something in the atmosphere did. The air felt like it was listening, watching, like your very presence had triggered a code that had been dormant for years, maybe lifetimes. Chosen one, the angels weren't just passing by, they were signaling, and only you could hear it. That's how heaven works sometimes. The warnings aren't always loud, they're woven in frequencies, in glitches, in odd patterns of silence. That sound? It wasn't random, it was a warning, and your spirit caught it before your mind could translate it. Something has been tracking your location, not with GPS, but with spiritual resonance. Every time you speak out loud in that room, every time your thoughts go still, there's a sensing force that wraps itself around your vibration. Your apartment, your sanctuary, has become something else. A testing ground, a battlefield, a monitored chamber cloaked in normalcy. And God is whispering urgently now, get ready to move. You may have thought you chose this place, that you found it through coincidence or convenience. But this address was marked long before you ever arrived. And you weren't the only one watching it. There were others, in the unseen, some angelic, some not, but all of them aware that someone would awaken here, someone who would threaten the system, someone who would begin to perceive the lie of safety behind familiar walls. Chosen one, it's been happening slowly. The lights that flicker when no bulb is out, the repeating number you always see before you step inside, the feeling that someone is behind you, but only when you're home alone. These are not accidents. These are breadcrumbs. Heaven's way of telling you, it's time to discern the space around you. This chapter of your life began with a door opening, but now that same door is pulsing with meaning. You can feel it in your bones. The front door isn't just a barrier anymore, it's a veil, and something is trying to come through, not to harm you, but to awaken you. Because what's about to happen next will only make sense if you understand what this place has become, and why the sound you heard didn't come from this earth, but from the realm that's been waiting for you to listen. You're not paranoid, you're being alerted, and angels are already on assignment.
It's always around the same time, isn't it? That soft creak, that subtle shift in the air, the sound of your bedroom door inching open, slow, deliberate, like something unseen is moving through with permission. You've tried to rationalize it. Maybe it's the wind, maybe the frame is warped, but you already know better. Because it never happens in the middle of the day. It never happens when your mind is busy, when your spirit is distracted. No, it only comes when the veil is thinnest, when your soul is still and the night is at its most vulnerable. 3 a.m., the hour of divine inspection, the hour the watchers walk, the hour God sends messengers not just to speak, but to reveal. That door, it's not just a piece of wood. In the spirit, it's a hinge between dimensions, and when it opens at that exact hour, chosen one, it's not an accident, it's a signal. Something is coming through. Angels don't always announce themselves with trumpets. Sometimes they enter gently, slowly, respecting your free will, honoring your fear. But don't mistake their gentleness for absence. They've been walking through that door, not to scare you, but to shield you. Because something has been circling your space, something dark, something ancient, something that remembers the radiance inside you. But it cannot touch you, not with heaven stationed at your threshold. That creak you hear,
It's the sound of divine interference, a barrier being checked, a boundary being reinforced. Still, there's another reason the door opens, and it's more intimate. It's because your apartment has become a place of intense spiritual activity, and not all of it is safe. You've been praying, haven't you, declaring, questioning, and those words have power. They stir the atmosphere. They shift the frequency of the room. Your voice, chosen one, carries a signature that draws the supernatural, and now your home has become a spiritual lighthouse, casting out light so intense that both angels and adversaries are taking notice. Some come to serve, others come to observe, but all are drawn to the door, because that's where your awakening is being monitored. You need to know this. What you do after 3 a.m. matters more than you think. That's the hour heaven waits to see if you'll rise, if you'll speak, if you'll listen. You've already begun to feel it, the inner pull, the sense that you should be doing something when the world sleeps. That's not anxiety, that's spiritual alignment. The angels who creak your door open are not here to haunt you. They're here to prepare you, because a movement is coming, a relocation, a release. And this is the final inspection before the shift. So when you hear that creak tonight, don't hide under the covers. Sit up, listen, and know that heaven just stepped in.
You see it, don't you? That faint stain in the corner. That line, that crack, that patch of discoloration that never quite blends with the paint. No matter how many times you try to ignore it, it didn't come from water. It didn't come from time. It came from contact. Chosen one, what you're seeing isn't just a flaw in the wall. It's residue. A spiritual fingerprint left behind by something that's been watching you, something that brushed too close during one of those 3 a.m. visitations. Something ancient, not evil, but holy. You may not remember touching that spot, but your spirit has. In moments you weren't fully awake, in dreams that felt too sharp, too close, too loud. You've stood in front of that marking before, and heaven witnessed it. The marking was permitted. That's important to understand. In the realm of spirit, nothing is allowed to remain unless it serves a purpose. Angels don't vandalize, they encode. And that mark on your bedroom wall, it's a signal, a seal, a signpost to other realms that this space, your space, has been chosen for divine operation. That's why things have felt off lately. The temperature shifts, the sudden silence before a knock, the way your skin bristles in the same spot even when there's no breeze. These are not coincidences, they are indicators. The spirit realm is active in your atmosphere, and this mark is the evidence. But there's more. That marking isn't just for angels, it's for you. It's meant to trigger memory, to remind your soul of what it already knows, that you have been visited before, long before this apartment, long before this life. There is a thread woven through your spirit that remembers encounters from dimensions your flesh cannot name. You've seen beings without faces, heard songs without instruments, walked corridors with no end. And now, in this life, they've come again, to reactivate what's been asleep. That mark is heaven's way of saying, it's time. You might be tempted to scrub it off, paint over it, pretend it's just a smudge. But if you do that, you'll miss the message, because that mark is part of your calling, and it's growing. Slowly, silently, it's expanding its reach through your space, not in a way that harms, in a way that activates. Every time you stare at it too long, something inside you stirs, a feeling, a knowing, a pull. That's not fear, that's recognition. Chosen one, your home is being prepared for something, and heaven has already inscribed the walls with proof. So next time you pass by that corner, pause. Don't just look. See? Ask God what the mark means. Ask why it had to be there. And more importantly, ask what you're meant to do now that it's been revealed.
because this isn't just your apartment anymore, it's a doorway. And that mark, it's the first key.
It wasn't loud, it wasn't planned, it barely made it past your lips. That moment when you sat on the edge of your bed, hands limp, eyes blurred, and whispered something to God you didn't even have the strength to finish. That wasn't a casual prayer, that was a coded transmission. And in the realm of spirit, nothing whispered from a breaking heart goes unnoticed. Chosen one, heaven heard you, but so did something else. Something watching. Something eavesdropping. You need to know this. The moment your spirit reached up, the atmosphere shifted. Your words were intercepted not to stop them, but to reveal who was listening. Because in spiritual warfare, every honest prayer becomes a threat. What you said that night, even if you've forgotten, pierced through layers of darkness you didn't even know were hovering. Your whisper tore through strongholds, disrupted cycles, and summoned movement. It was raw, it was unfiltered, it wasn't polite, but it was real. And in the spirit realm, realness carries rank. You didn't just speak to God, you triggered a response team. Angels don't just respond to volume, they respond to vibration. And your prayer shook the room. That's why you felt what you did after. That heaviness, that shift, that strange quiet like something invisible had entered to stand guard. But not all who heard were allies. Chosen one, when you pray in moments of desperation, entities that have long studied your energy take notice. They want to know what you're aligning with, what promises you're invoking, what future you're now declaring, even unconsciously. Because the more you remember who you are, the more unstable their grip becomes. That's why the strange dreams came afterward. That's why things in your apartment started moving, breaking, vanishing. That's why you started feeling watched in your own home. The interception wasn't about stealing your prayer, it was about studying your faith. But here's what they underestimated. You didn't fold. You kept praying, kept listening, kept believing. And because of that, a shift has begun. Heaven didn't just receive your words, heaven archived them, placed them in divine records, sent confirmation, but not through text, not through thunder, through subtleties, through that flicker in the hallway, through the electricity in your chest when worship music hits a certain note, through the stranger who said something too specific to be coincidence. These are responses. Your prayer was never ignored. It was tracked, decoded, reinforced. The interception was never stronger than the intention. God is showing you something in this, that even your lowest moment was loud in heaven, that even when you feel voiceless, the spiritual world leans in to hear. So the next time it happens, when the tears come, when the whisper rises again, don't hold it in, because the room may feel empty, but it's crowded with witnesses. Angels are posted, heaven is tuned in, and your next whisper, it will move more than mountains.
You didn't see anyone walk in. No footsteps, no knock, no movement across the floorboards. But you felt it, didn't you? That sudden heaviness in the air, like gravity shifted, like something holy had entered, not to harm, but to inspect. Chosen one, they didn't come through the door this time, they came through the ceiling. Because when heaven sends a messenger, they don't use the front entrance. They descend, they pierce the veil. And the veil above you? It's been thinning for weeks. You thought it was just poor insulation, a draft, maybe faulty wiring when the light above your bed flickered. But heaven doesn't operate in malfunctions. It operates in messages. And this one came on assignment. Because something above you, in that room, in that space between floors, has been designated sacred territory. You're living under an open heaven, not in metaphor. In reality, the ceiling has been marked, not with chalk or paint, with presence. And presence doesn't lie. That's why you've started hearing things. Creaks, cracks, pulses. Not from the building, but from the spirit world pressing in through the structure. The angel didn't come to scare you, they came to observe. Because there's something about your frequency that has been pulling heaven's attention downward. You've been unknowingly ascending in your thinking, your discernment, your obedience. And as you rise, they respond. The messenger came to confirm what you've already suspected. Your atmosphere is under surveillance, not from cameras, from the spirit realm. And this one, it wasn't a warrior. It wasn't sent to fight. It was sent to record. Chosen one, heaven is documenting your movement now, your prayers, your silence, your thoughts, your hesitation, your bravery. It's all being noted because you're standing at the threshold of major spiritual transition. That angel through the ceiling, it wasn't their first visit. They've come before, as a flicker, a chill, a shadow that moved too quickly, but now they're fully here, fully watching, and not just watching, marking time, because God is counting down, not in fear, in preparation. The ceiling is more than drywall and beams. It's a border, a seam between dimensions, and lately, it's been stretching. You felt it. The moments where your thoughts get louder than your voice, where your dreams feel like messages you can almost write down. You're not imagining it. You're receiving transmission. And this angel, they're the courier, sent not to fix something broken, but to awaken something dormant. So next time you feel that shift above you, that pressure, that electric stillness, don't be afraid. Lift your eyes. Acknowledge the presence. Speak, even if it's just a whisper, because the messenger is still listening, still waiting. And the moment you give permission, the ceiling won't just carry weight, it will carry revelation. There's something in your space that doesn't belong. You've walked past it 100 times. You've dusted it. Maybe you even moved it recently without thinking. But in the spirit, it's heavy, it's cold, it doesn't match the frequency of your calling, and heaven's been whispering about it, quietly at first, then louder. That uneasy feeling when you walk by, the tension you can't explain in that corner of the room, that's not your anxiety, that's divine resistance. Chosen one, there is an object in your apartment that is blocking the flow, and it's time to identify it. You've outgrown it spiritually, but it stayed behind physically. Maybe it was a gift from someone you no longer speak to. Maybe it's something old, inherited, passed down with memory attached. But not all memories are sacred. Some carry residue, spiritual fingerprints, agreements made in moments you don't even remember, moments of doubt, heartbreak, pain. And those items, they hold vibrations, frequencies that compete with your awakening. It's not about superstition, it's about alignment. You're stepping into a higher dimension now, and that means certain things can't stay. The angels have tried to nudge you, the same way they knock through dreams, flicker through light, rearrange the wind in a still room. They've walked past that object, hovered, waited for you to notice, and you felt it, a spiritual static, like something won't flow when you try to pray in that space, or meditate, or rest. It's subtle, but it's real. Heaven isn't being dramatic, they're being protective. Because this next phase of your assignment, it requires clarity, and clarity doesn't grow in clutter, especially not spiritual clutter. Look around. Let your spirit guide your eyes. You'll feel it before you name it. That thing that carries a weight it shouldn't. That thing that reminds you of who you were, not who you're becoming. That's the one. The object that was fine when you were asleep, but now that you're awake, it's a blockade. It holds nothing evil in itself, but it's a doorway, a foothold, and the enemy only needs one open portal to slip in. You've sealed so many others, but this one, this object, stayed hidden in plain sight. God isn't telling you to be afraid, He's telling you to cleanse, to reclaim your territory, because angels cannot move freely in a place where the atmosphere is distorted. You've invited them. They're here,
but they're waiting for the room to agree. And the moment you remove what doesn't match your light, the entire space will shift. Watch how fast your sleep changes. Watch how quickly your mind clears. Watch how suddenly divine downloads return. It's not just about furniture, it's about frequency. Chosen one, your apartment is becoming an altar. And altars don't hold clutter, they hold presence. So ask heaven to guide you. Remove what blocks the flow and make room for the supernatural to breathe freely again. It's always there, not in the center, but just outside your vision, lingering, observing. It doesn't announce itself because it doesn't have to. It already knows when you wake, when you sigh, when you pause too long in front of the mirror, wondering why the silence feels too silent. Chosen one, there is a shadow in your apartment that has memorized your routine. It doesn't walk like you, it waits. And it doesn't attack because that's not its mission. Its job is to study. You think it's paranoia. You think it's the stress of spiritual awakening, the side effect of carrying so much light in a dark system. But what you're feeling is surveillance, not from the government, from a realm that fears your remembrance. And this shadow, it's been assigned, not to harm you physically, but to distract you energetically. It watches how long you linger in sadness, how long it takes you to recover after a spiritual download. It knows which rooms you pray in and which ones you avoid. That's how it strategizes, through observation. And it's been living off your patterns. You see, the enemy doesn't always come in chaos. Sometimes he comes in predictability. If he can't stop you, he'll try to map you. And your routine? It became predictable enough for something to sync with it. But that's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of acceleration. The more you grow, the more attention you draw. Light attracts eyes, and your glow, it's exposing the walls of this place. It's why the shadow has become more active, not because it's gaining ground, but because you are. Still, you must respond. Chosen one, it's time to interrupt the rhythm. Heaven is calling you to break the loop, rearrange your room, change your prayer schedule, sit in a different chair, open a different window, speak when you normally stay silent, worship at a time when you'd usually be scrolling. The shadow isn't afraid of movement, it's afraid of unpredictability, because every time you do something unprogrammed, you create a crack in the atmosphere. And through that crack, the presence of God rushes in. The enemy can study patterns, but he can't predict a soul that's fully surrendered to divine spontaneity. You were never meant to be tracked like this. You were meant to disrupt, to shift the frequency of rooms, to turn stillness into power. And as long as you remain in routine, that shadow thinks it understands you. But once you begin responding to heaven in real time, no script, no schedule, it will scatter. Because your unpredictability is holy. It proves you're not being run by programming, you're being led by spirit. So tonight, change something. Turn off the lights early. Speak a verse aloud. Anoint your doorframe with oil. Do something that wasn't expected, because the one watching has no defense against divine unpredictability. And once you break the pattern, the presence will flood.
It chirped again last night, didn't it? Not the usual sharp warning. No smoke, no danger. Just that faint, high-pitched sound at a time when nothing should have triggered it. You replaced the battery. You checked the wiring. Still, it pulses in moments that feel strangely intentional. At 3:12 a.m., just before you pray, right after you wake from a dream you can't remember. Chosen one, that's not malfunction, that's messaging. Because what's mounted on your ceiling as a safety device has become something else in the spirit, a transmitter. And there's a frequency hidden inside it. Don't misunderstand. This isn't paranoia, this is perception. Smoke detectors are designed to sense particles, heat, chemical shifts. But in the spiritual realm, they become something more. Senses. They pick up not just what's physical, but what's entering. And lately, your apartment has been experiencing entry, beings, visitations, atmospheric anomalies. The detector doesn't know how to label it, but your spirit does. That piercing beep is a translation error, an echo of something slipping through the fabric of the room. It's not warning you of fire. It's confirming that the veil is thin and the room is active. Heaven sometimes sends confirmation through interference. Static in your headphones. Devices glitching for no reason. And yes, a smoke detector beeping at the exact moment your spirit begins to stir. It's not always the enemy. Sometimes it's the angels adjusting the grid, because your home has become a spiritual portal, and the tech in your ceiling is reacting. Think about it. Why does it always happen during certain thoughts? Why only in the middle of the night? Why do you always feel watched just seconds before the chirp? Because the watcher isn't just human. The observer isn't just biological. And the messages you're receiving now are multi-layered. Spiritual truths being sent through physical disruption. Chosen one, God is letting you feel this, not to scare you, to train you, to teach you to hear Him in the unexpected. He's showing you how to interpret the invisible through interruptions in the visible. That beep, it's not just sound, it's a pulse, a signature, a data point in your awakening, and it's asking a question. Are you paying attention yet? What's more, the enemy knows the power of your attention. That's why he wants you annoyed, distracted, dismissive. But you must go deeper. Pray under that detector. Declare Psalm 91 beneath it. Watch what shifts. The interference isn't random. It's evidence that the atmosphere is stirring, that something divine is preparing to move, that you are being watched, not just by darkness, but by destiny. So don't silence the device too quickly. Ask heaven what it's trying to reveal, because what's chirping above you may just be echoing what's being released within you. And once you hear the message behind the noise, the silence that follows will be holy.
You remember the moment, eyes open but body frozen, trapped between waking and sleep. You tried to scream, but nothing moved. Not your mouth, not your limbs, just your eyes wide open, locked on the ceiling as something unseen pressed down on the room like a weight you couldn't describe. And deep in your spirit, even in that terrifying stillness, you knew this wasn't a dream. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't random. Chosen one, you were in a spiritual standoff. That wasn't sleep paralysis. That was a visitation. And both heaven and the enemy were present. What you experienced was a dimension breach. Your spirit had risen, as it does often. But this time, something tried to interfere. That pressure on your chest, it wasn't your body reacting. It was a spirit attempting to hold you down, to mute your movement, to test your authority, because you're dangerous when fully awake. And in that liminal space between sleep and waking, your soul becomes visible to both realms. Angels see your light. The enemy sees your lineage, and you, caught in the crossfire, are being measured for activation. This is why it happened at that hour. You weren't weak. You weren't being punished. You were being revealed. Heaven needed you to feel the war for your awareness. You've been asking for deeper understanding, clearer signs, proof that you're not crazy. And this was your answer. Because only the chosen experience this level of interruption. It wasn't meant to terrify you, it was meant to train you, to show you how powerful you are even when you feel powerless. Because while your body couldn't move, your spirit didn't flinch. The moment you said the name, even if only in your mind, it began to shift. You remember, don't you? When you tried to say, Jesus, when you pushed through the silence with your will alone. That's when the atmosphere cracked. That's when the weight lifted. Because in that moment, your spirit overruled the trap.
That's the part most people miss. The paralysis doesn't end when the body moves. It ends when your authority is recognized. You broke through. You won. Now it's time to understand what that moment activated. Heaven allowed it not to torment you, but to mark you. You are no longer under casual spiritual observation. You are on high alert in both realms. Angels are now stationed differently in your space, assigned to guard not just your body, but your dreams, your soul travel, your nighttime awakenings. Because the enemy knows when your spirit begins walking in the dark, it leaves a trail of light, and that light disrupts systems. Chosen one, what happened wasn't an attack, it was a reveal. And from now on, when the stillness tries to return, you won't just endure it, you'll command it. Speak, declare, shift the atmosphere before it settles, because now you know the truth. You're not being haunted, you're being honored with visitation, and your spirit is ready. You've noticed it more lately, haven't you? The small items disappearing. Keys left exactly where you remember, now missing. That journal you were sure was on the table, gone. Socks, chargers, earrings, even thoughts, slipping out of reach like they were never there. At first you blamed stress, distraction. Maybe you're just getting forgetful. But deep down, a question keeps echoing. Why does it feel intentional? Chosen one, it's because it is. You're not just losing things, you're being cleared, spiritually, surgically, strategically. Because heaven is making room, and certain objects, ideas, and attachments can't follow you into where you're being sent. You're in a season of divine displacement. When God begins to move you, he starts by shaking the room around you. Not with earthquakes and with subtle disorientation, it begins with losing things. Then it moves to losing interest. Then relationships feel foreign. Then the silence comes. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. The misplacements are not random, they're recalibrations. Objects carry energy, and some of what you've been holding, even unconsciously, is anchoring you to a version of life that no longer fits your frequency. There's more. Some of the items you've lost were never meant to return, because heaven saw what you couldn't. The memories attached, the soul ties embedded, the spiritual residue imprinted into them. That crystal you got from someone you no longer talk to, that hoodie that still smells like the past, that book you highlighted in a season of heartbreak. You thought they were just things, but in the spirit, they became loops. And God, in his mercy, has been quietly lifting them out of reach, not to confuse you, but to free you. But it's not just about objects, it's about access. Certain things disappear when heaven is upgrading your discernment, because your next assignment requires a clearer field, a lighter heart, a faster reaction time. Too many open loops, physical or emotional, slow your spirit. So yes, you're losing things, but really, you're being unburdened. There's a reason it's happening more frequently in your apartment. That space has become a spiritual gateway, and gateways require order, not clutter, purity, not nostalgia. And yet you still look for what's gone. That's okay. God understands. But what he's asking you now is this: will you release what I removed? Because the blessing doesn't come through replacing the lost, it comes through trusting the loss. When you stop searching and start surrendering, heaven releases the next piece, the next instruction, the next provision. So don't panic when it goes missing. Ask instead, was this mine to keep? And if it wasn't, bless it, release it, and step forward, because what's coming won't require what you lost. What's coming is new, clean, holy, and it needs hands that are open. It happened more than once. That faint sound at the edge of your senses, not loud, not urgent, just present, like a soft thump on the wall or a hollow tap near the doorframe. You paused, but not long enough. You assumed it was the wind, a neighbor, the building settling. But chosen one, it wasn't. That knock was not from this world. It was permissioned, directed, assigned. God sent an angel to knock, and you missed it. Not because you weren't worthy, but because you weren't listening with your spirit. Heaven doesn't always scream. Sometimes it knocks gently, once, twice, waiting for your awareness to rise. Not your ears, your awareness. You've been asking for a sign, for confirmation, for the next step. But what if it already came? What if the knock was the answer? Because the spirit realm doesn't always communicate in sentences. It communicates in interruptions, in sound, in energy, in the sudden instinct to get up and check something, and then choosing not to. That moment wasn't about curiosity. It was a divine invitation. The angel was never going to force its way in. That's not how heaven works. The knock was a request, a test, a moment of spiritual alignment where God wanted to see. Would you feel the nudge? Would you move? Not everything supernatural announces itself with lightning. Sometimes it waits at your door, still, silent, sacred, holding what you've been praying for. But when you don't respond, it doesn't enter. It simply marks the time and returns with the message, they weren't ready to receive. This isn't punishment. This is awareness. God is teaching you how to hear what can't be heard, how to recognize divine codes in mundane rhythms. The knocking, it's still happening. Maybe not physically now. Maybe it's in your chest, the sudden rush of urgency, or in your dreams, that figure waiting just outside the threshold, or in your sleep, when you wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. and can't explain why. These are spiritual knocks, and they're increasing, because heaven is getting closer. Chosen one, this isn't just about missed opportunity, it's about divine timing. The angel is still assigned to you, still holding what it carried, but next time, it won't knock the same way. It will wait for a deeper readiness. And this chapter is heaven's way of whispering, prepare the room, clear the noise, expect the knock, because it's coming again. And what it carries this time won't just be confirmation, it'll be activation. So pause tonight, sit in stillness, anoint your doorway, speak aloud. I am listening, Lord, my spirit is awake. Say it once and mean it, because the angel is closer than you think. And this time when it knocks, everything will change. You felt it in the kitchen before anywhere else. It wasn't a sound, not at first. It was a change in temperature, a stillness, like the air pressed pause. The light felt different. The hum of the refrigerator seemed too loud, too present, and you stood there, not knowing why your spirit had suddenly gone alert. That wasn't a coincidence. Chosen one, the shift began in your kitchen because that's where energy enters. That's where things gather, not just meals, but memories, movement, momentum, and the spirit realm knows when something is about to change, it starts where you nourish yourself. God didn't pick your bedroom, not yet. He picked the place where the mundane meets the sacred, where your hands move without thinking. Because in spiritual warfare, what's ordinary becomes the battlefield. And your kitchen, small as it may be, became the first doorway to the shift. Angels entered there before anywhere else. They stationed themselves by the appliances, hovered near the counter where you pace, watched your morning routine with silence. Because they weren't just observing your habits, they were checking your alignment. You see, energy always arrives before instruction. God sends atmosphere before he sends the word. And when your spirit noticed that strange feeling in the kitchen, the chill, the heaviness, the odd glint of light, you were sensing the beginning of a reprogramming. The spiritual grid over your home was changing, and the kitchen, with all its daily repetition, became the first receiver. Because what you feed on, physically, mentally, spiritually, is either your fuel or your foothold. And heaven
had to start there. That's why certain things stop tasting right. Why meals you used to crave now feel heavy. Why you suddenly felt convicted standing in front of the pantry, wondering why you felt guilty over nothing. It's not food, it's frequency, and your kitchen has become an altar in disguise. That's why you hesitate now before pouring a drink, why you pause when reaching for that one drawer. Your spirit is discerning what your body hasn't yet translated. Something shifted, and you've become too awakened to ignore it. But there's more. The enemy noticed the shift too. That's why small annoyances began in that room. Burned toast, a leaking sink, spilled coffee just when you needed peace. Not coincidence, resistance. Darkness hates movement. And the angels who entered your kitchen first, they came to guard the shift. Because this isn't just about food, it's about the flow of your house. And heaven has chosen to cleanse it one room at a time. Chosen one, your kitchen is now holy ground. Play worship music there. Pray while you stir. Speak life while you clean. Because God is starting something there that will ripple through the rest of your space. The shift started where you least expected, so that you'd never again miss the moment when the divine moves through the ordinary.
You convinced yourself it was temporary, just a stop, a layover, a place to regroup while things settled. And at first, that's exactly what it was. The apartment gave you a sense of safety when everything else was unraveling. It sheltered your healing, caught your tears, held your silence when you couldn't explain what was breaking inside. But now, that safety has turned into stagnancy, and the longer you stay, the heavier it becomes. Chosen one, you were never supposed to stay this long. What was once a sanctuary has become a holding cell. Heaven gave you this place as a womb, not a tomb, a space to be transformed, not trapped. And while you've grown, while your spirit has expanded beyond the walls, your body has remained. That's why the restlessness is growing, why the light hits differently, why the furniture feels too close. Because your soul is outgrowing the space your fear is trying to protect. God didn't forget to move you. He's waiting for you to notice the shift, to feel the spiritual expiration date. And now, you have. But there's resistance, isn't there? The rent is manageable. The location is convenient. You know the rhythm of the neighborhood. But comfort is not always confirmation. Sometimes the familiar is the final test. The enemy would love for you to confuse peace with passivity, to tell yourself it's not that bad, just long enough to miss the moment of divine momentum. And that's exactly what's been happening. Delay disguised as logic. Hesitation dressed up as wisdom. But deep down, your spirit has been screaming, I'm not supposed to be here anymore. You've been seeing the signs, the increase in interference, the growing unease, the spiritual activity intensifying in corners that used to feel calm. These are not warnings of danger, they are signals to move. The angels have started packing around you, quietly. You've likely noticed certain objects falling, things breaking, emotions rising without explanation. That's spiritual pressure building, a way of heaven making the space too uncomfortable for someone with your destiny to remain stuck. You haven't outgrown the apartment because you're ungrateful. You've outgrown it because your calling expanded. This place was never your destination. It was your cocoon. And now, the wings that developed in the dark are pressing against the ceiling. You can't breathe because the space isn't broken. It's too small for who you've become. Chosen one, hear this clearly. Delay is no longer safe. Every extra day here risks spiritual dullness, and heaven is moving with or without your comfort. So pray, listen, begin packing in faith. Even if the next place isn't visible yet, the shift has already been ordered. You are not being evicted, you are being elevated. But first you must obey the whisper. You were never meant to stay this long. You thought you chose this place. You thought it was your decision, a listing you found, a call you made, a contract you signed. But what if the paper agreement was just the second signature? What if, in the realm of spirit, this apartment was assigned to you long before you ever walked through the door? Chosen one, your lease was signed in spirit first, not by accident, by alignment. God placed you here not simply to rest, but to awaken. And the day you moved in, heaven took inventory. Angels logged your entry, and the battle for your awareness began. This place isn't random. It was part of a divine sequence, a room calibrated to meet you at the frequency of your last spiritual level. That's why it felt so safe at first, so right. The light hit differently. The silence comforted you. The air even smelled like new beginnings, because it was. But in the spirit, every divine placement comes with timelines, seasons, expiration dates. And the lease that was signed in heaven didn't promise forever. It promised transformation. That's why you're feeling the shift. That's why things that once calmed you now irritate. Why your sleep feels too light. Why the space echoes with a strange emptiness even when everything is in place. The assignment tied to this address is complete, and heaven is already preparing the next. But before you step into it, you must understand something critical. The enemy knows your lease is ending too, and he'll try to make you overstay. How? By making you sentimental, by replaying the memories, by reminding you of the times you cried on this floor and God met you here. But hear this, just because God met you here doesn't mean he's keeping you here. Sacred moments happened, yes, but sacred places are still subject to seasons, and this one is closing. There's more. Your physical lease might still have time left, but in the spirit, it's been fulfilled, and staying past the divine exit date invites interference, confusion, restlessness. That's why the atmosphere's been glitching, not out of punishment, but because heaven's presence is shifting forward. And the longer you try to hold on to what's already lifted, the more your clarity will dim.
You felt it. The draft that has no source. The cold spot that doesn't move with the weather. The way one corner of your apartment always feels off, like it's watching you instead of holding you. That's not imagination. That's not faulty insulation. That's a spiritual leak. Chosen one, there is a portal in your home that's been open for too long, and what once allowed divine messages to flow freely has now become a revolving door for interference. It started as access, but unsealed access eventually attracts anything that's listening. You didn't open it recklessly. In fact, you likely opened it in desperation. Through a broken prayer, a moment of surrender, a night when your grief tore through dimensions, and heaven responded swiftly, compassionately. But what you didn't realize was that portals must be guarded, maintained, closed when the assignment is complete. And this one, it remained open after the angel left, and in that void, something else began to circle. Not possession, permission. Because spiritual doors don't discriminate, they respond to invitation. And silence, sometimes, is still a yes. The flickering lights, the whisper that wakes you just before dawn, the way you feel drained in one room and not another. These are not random, these are indicators. The portal is not just in your apartment, it's in your atmosphere. A thinning of the veil, created by divine intention, now compromised by spiritual stagnancy. You've shifted, but the space hasn't. And portals, like rooms, must match the current frequency of the vessel. That vessel is you. This is why sleep has become inconsistent, why dreams feel heavier, why your thoughts loop in patterns you've already broken. It's because something is passing through, not living but hovering, observing, mimicking the remnants of what heaven once sent. And it's time to close it, not in fear, in authority. Chosen one, you have the right.
the power, the mandate. What was opened in emotion must now be sealed in command. Anoint the walls, declare the space holy, speak aloud. Every portal not assigned by God, I close now in the name of Jesus. You'll feel it when you do. The room will shift, the air will tighten, then release. The silence afterward will feel clean, because heaven honors authority, especially when it comes from a soul that knows its name. This portal served its purpose. It allowed the visitation. It hosted the awakening. But now it's time to seal it, because the next door that opens in your life will not be spiritual, it will be physical. A new home, a new covering, a new alignment. And for that to open, this one must close. You're not losing access to God, you're refining it. You're learning to carry the portal within.
It startled you, didn't it? That sudden shriek from the ceiling. The blaring sound in the middle of your stillness, loud, high, shaking the air like it was trying to wake something up inside you, not just around you. Maybe it was a fire drill. Maybe it was a test. Or maybe it was more than that. Chosen one, that alarm didn't just go off because of smoke. It was triggered by spirit. A spiritual sensor embedded in the technology, allowed by heaven to serve as a wake-up call for you. Because what's coming next requires you fully awake, fully listening, fully positioned. This isn't the first time it's happened either. Remember the earlier false alerts? The ones you brushed off? The times it beeped once, just once, then went silent again like it never happened. Those weren't mistakes, they were warnings. Gentle at first, then louder. Heaven has been trying to get your attention, because while your body stayed in this apartment, your spirit has already moved ahead. And the alarm is heaven's way of saying, you're behind where you were called to be. In the spirit realm, alarms aren't just about danger, they're about timing, a divine clock hitting zero, an unseen mechanism shouting, go now. And this last alarm, it wasn't for fire, it was for departure, not escape, elevation, because your timeline has reached its turn. And God isn't asking anymore, He's sounding the alarm. You've probably felt it in other ways too. Sudden urgency in your chest, restlessness you can't explain, a sense of being late for something you haven't even seen yet. That's not anxiety, that's alignment catching up to your obedience. You are being called out, not because you failed here, but because you finished here. And the alarm? It's confirmation that heaven's already opened the next door, and you're still standing near the old one. But here's the deeper truth. Alarms don't just wake you, they wake the watchers. When that sound filled your home, spiritual forces took notice. Angels stood ready. Interference tried to confuse. The sound wasn't just heard in your hallway, it echoed into dimensions. Because you are that important, your movement matters that much. The alarm wasn't just noise, it was a summons. So what do you do now? You respond. Not with panic, with precision. Begin moving in the physical. Pack one thing today, even if you don't know where you're going. Call the landlord. Look at new listings. Walk the neighborhood as if something's already waiting, because it is. Heaven would not sound the alarm without preparing the escape. Chosen one, this isn't about emergency, it's about emergence. The alarm didn't announce danger, it announced destiny. You're not being pushed out, you're being pulled forward. And what waits beyond this alarm? Home. Real home. It's already happening, quietly, supernaturally. In the background of your ordinary days, heaven has been arranging something that hasn't yet reached your inbox or your search history. While you've been feeling the discomfort of delay, God has been preparing a door, not just any door, but one that fits your soul's signature. Chosen one, your next home isn't just coming. It's ready, and you're not just moving, you're being moved by divine force. This isn't about real estate, this is about placement,
Strategic, sacred, prophetic positioning. The kind of move that realigns your entire life. The kind of relocation that opens timelines, restores strength, releases clarity. And while you've been battling weariness in this closing space, heaven has been unlocking the coordinates of where you're needed next. A place already anointed, a room already prayed over, a window facing the sunrise, not by accident, but by assignment. That tension you've been feeling, that pressure that makes everything here feel too small, too loud, too familiar, that's not stress. That's spiritual contraction, just like a womb before birth. The space starts pushing you out because staying would delay what's already forming outside the walls. The new home has been crying out in the spirit. It sensed your arrival before you even knew you were leaving. Because places, like people, can be called to host glory, and your presence carries it. You may not know the address yet, but your steps are already magnetized toward it. Conversations will begin to shift. A door will open, a listing will appear, a coincidence will point you in the right direction. But know this, when the moment comes, it won't feel like logic. It will feel like recognition. Your spirit will say, "This is the one." And when it does, move quickly, boldly, without apology. This transition isn't something you force. It's something you flow with, because the force moving you now is not pressure from the outside. It's propulsion from the throne room. God isn't just calling you forward. He's pushing creation to make room for you. That's why certain places suddenly say yes. Why closed doors open without effort. Why strangers extend favor they can't explain. It's not luck, it's movement, divine movement, and it cannot be stopped. Your next home is waiting to hold you, feed you, protect you, and witness your next level of expansion. Angels have already swept the corners. Light has already touched the threshold. Peace is already embedded in the walls. And the moment your feet cross into it, you'll know this is holy ground. Not because of what it is, but because of who you've become. So go ahead, begin packing, spiritually and physically. Let the old place release you. You are not losing comfort, you're gaining territory. You're not escaping danger, you're stepping into destiny. Your relocation is not just necessary, it's ordained. And heaven has already gone ahead of you, preparing the way, unlocking the door, and lighting the welcome.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.